Hi, this is our Teaching Ethics Through Harry Potter UF200 group project. The Declaration of Human Rights was created on December 10th, 1948 under the UN General Assembly, and they adopted what was called the Declaration of Human Rights. This declaration contained 30 articles that stated the basic rights that every human was entitled to. Now, the first one we chose was Article 2, which is the right to life and freedom from discrimination, which basically states that everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration without any distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. This means that no matter what you look like, who you are, what you believe in, or where you come from, you have the same human rights as every other human being. Now, without this right to life, it is impossible to obtain any of the other human rights. This is important because every human being should be able to have the same opportunities regardless of their appearance or how they were raised. This allows people to be judged by their character and not their physical appearance.
Harry Potter is a great example where you can see Article 2, the right to life, being followed. All wizards have the right to attend Hogwarts or any other school for wizards, regardless of their family background, their class, or prestige. Hermione is one example of this. She has two Muggle parents, meaning her parents aren't wizards and have no magical abilities, which is often looked down upon in the wizarding world. But regardless, she receives her letter to Hogwarts. Ronald Weasley's family is lower to middle class and has a lot of mouths to feed, which Ron gets teased for a lot. But he still, regardless of his class, gets invited to Hogwarts because he is a wizard. These two characters have qualities that aren't desirable, but Hogwarts doesn't only take wealthy wizards or witches that come from magical parents. Hogwarts doesn't discriminate. There are also times in Harry Potter where the right to life is broken and wizards are discriminated against. In Harry Potter, wizards' race is defined by their genetics and who their parents are. The four races are purebloods, half-bloods, muggleborns, and muggles. Voldemort and his Death Eaters believe that wizards who are purebloods, wizards that descend from other witches and wizards, should be in a place of power, and the other races are below them. Lucius Malfoy and his son also are prejudiced against races other than purebloods. For example, Draco Malfoy, Harry Potter's enemy, calls Hermione a very hurtful name, a mudblood, to say that she is beneath him because she has Muggle parents, or parents that aren't wizards.
The second article we chose was Article 24, which is the right to play or rest and leisure, which is stating that everyone has the right to rest and leisure, including reasonable limitation of working hours and periodic holidays with pay. This means that as a human being, you should be able to take days off from your job and other responsibilities, or limit the amount of time you spend focusing on those tasks. It also includes being able to take time off of work to spend time with family and friends on the holidays while being paid on some occasions. This is important because everyone should have the right to take time off from their responsibilities to relax and take a step back. It's not only good to be able to take a break, but it can help with your mental health and strengthen the connections you have with your loved ones. If we had to work all the time, people would become worn out and frustrated with little to no time for themselves and relaxation.
The right to play can be seen all throughout Harry Potter. In Harry's first year, he joins the Gryffindor Quidditch team as the team seeker and has fun practicing with his teammates outside of classes. Quidditch is Harry's stress reliever and one of his favorite parts of his life at Hogwarts. Also, students are given the freedom to travel to Hogsmeade on selected weekends after their third year at Hogwarts. And there, they are able to look through the shops, relax, and enjoy a nice glass of butterbeer with their friends. These are two activities students can participate in during their downtime and shows that Hogwarts also prioritizes their right to play. There are also several instances in Harry Potter where the right to play is violated. When Dolores Umbridge becomes headmistress of Hogwarts in the Order of the Phoenix, replacing Dumbledore, she bans all extracurricular activities and gatherings until they are approved by her, which means that Harry and his friends cannot play Quidditch. She makes it extremely difficult for Harry, Hermione, and Ron to visit Hagrid, and eventually she bans Harry from going to Hogsmeade. Umbridge takes away Harry's sources of play and leisure that he does when he isn't in class or doing homework when she establishes all of these new rules as headmistress.
Now, using the virtue ethics approach we learned in class this semester, I'm going to talk about how one might act in a situation if they followed this approach. Virtue ethics is a framework that focuses on morals rather than the rightness of an action. One of the attractions of virtue ethics is the flexibility to assess each situation individually. For example, an adult patient loses a massive amount of blood. The best chance of saving their life is an urgent blood transfusion. The patient refuses blood but asks for treatment instead with the best available non-blood products. Doctors in the 21st century are encouraged to work in partnerships with their patients, informing, guiding, advising, and helping them make the appropriate choices about how to deal with their illness. If the patient is considered sane and able to make a decision about their health, they are, therefore, able to make a decision about what happens in their life. It is good to respect the faith of that individual who has chosen to follow his or their own free will. That is a blessing of freedom we have here in the United States. Now to look at the doctor's perspective. The doctor examines the facts of the case, identifies her emotional response, which will illuminate and deepen her assessment of the situation, and considers the motivation of the patient and themselves. The doctor may feel disappointment that their judgment is rejected, frustration they cannot do their job as they wish, or anxiety that the patient might die unnecessarily. It is a difficult bridge to cross, but after fully exploring the facts and considering the ethical sensitivities, it can be concluded that a trustworthy and honest doctor should respect this patient's wish in this situation. So using the virtue approach, the doctor should respect his or her patient's wishes while informing them on all the other possible solutions that might result in a higher chance of saving his or her life.
Those who experience oppression, discrimination, and violations against their human rights more often are those of different religions, different races, the LGBTQA plus community, and women. Women experience discrimination specifically more often in the workplace, more so than men. And there was a study done by Pew Research, and the survey found that women employed in majority male workplaces are more likely to say their gender has made it harder for them to get ahead at work. And also, they are less likely to say that they are treated fairly in personal matters, and they report experiencing gender discrimination at significantly higher rates. This is shown through the gender wage gap, sexual harassment that is not being treated and not getting justice for the sexual harassment that happens in workplaces. And also, women are also told that they're supposed to take care of the household even if they have a full-time job because of the stereotypes that have been around for decades that women are in charge of the household. Another community that faces discrimination more often is the LGBTQA plus community. This often occurs in violence, the discrimination against them, specifically one incident on June 12th, 2016, where a man went into a known gay bar in Orlando and began to shoot. This was the Pulse nightclub shooting. And 49 were confirmed dead during this shooting and 53 were injured. The LGBTQA community also faces discrimination in the workplace. Some have come out saying that they have been fired from their jobs because they were openly gay or transgender. There is also something going on recently where people are trying to have the Supreme Court look at the legalization of same-sex marriage and trying to overturn that, even though it was passed in 2015. Another group of people who face discrimination are people of different races, specifically the African American community, as of right now, specifically with the Black Lives Matter movement. Unarmed Black men and women are being killed by police officers and civilians because of their skin color. This is from racial profiling. Racial profiling is when you believe someone is dangerous just because of their skin color. This does not just affect the African American community. This affects everyone who is not white because of all these stereotypes that have been placed on these communities.
In Harry Potter, wizards have the highest status, are the most respected, and therefore act superior to other races. House elves are one example of a race that faces oppression because of wizards. House elves are magical creatures that are enslaved by wizarding families and can only be freed if their masters present them with an item of clothing. They don't get paid for their hard work, are beaten if they do not follow orders, and aren't allowed to carry wands.
The last community that I will be talking about that faces oppression is people of different religions. Statistically, in the United States, people who practice Islam have been discriminated against, specifically after 9/11, because the people who committed that act were Muslim. And also people who are at a higher risk of discrimination, confirmed by a study done by Pew Research, is people who practice Judaism. Roughly 2/3 of Americans also say that Jews face at least some discrimination in the U.S., compared to 82% say people who practice Islam will face some discrimination in the United States. Just because someone is a different gender than you, sexual orientation, race, religion, does not mean that you should violate the human rights that are given to them through the Human Rights Declaration.
Okay, guys, now that you've learned about human rights, ethics, discrimination, and how it fits into Harry Potter, we're going to do a quick little class activity to see what you guys learned. What I want you guys to do is, while we're passing out these note cards, think of a scenario in your head that fits into one of the types of discrimination that we talked about. So it can be gender, LGBTQI+ discrimination, racial or religious discrimination, anything that you guys feel comfortable or can think of. It can totally be a personal story, but someone might pick it to act it out later on, so just be aware of that. And if you're not comfortable with that, just think of another situation. If you need help at all, ask one of us to come over. We're totally here to help you guys. Once you get your note card, please do not put your name on it. Instead of putting your name on it, I want you guys to write the type of discrimination that you're talking about on it and then underline that. And then on the card, just put the scenario that you thought of in your head. An example scenario is if you want to play football, but you were told you couldn't because it's a guy sport, and you were told that because you were a girl. That would be an example of gender discrimination. So anything like that is completely fine. And once you guys have put that on your note cards, you're just going to turn it over, and then we're going to come around and collect those note cards. So while my teammates are doing that, I am just going to split you guys up into 4 random teams. I'm just going to number you guys off 1 through 4. So the first team is going to be focusing on gender discrimination, the second one on LGBTQI+ discrimination, the third one on racial, and the fourth one on religious discrimination. And my teammates are going to sort the scenarios that you guys just thought of into those 4 different types, and then we're going to give them back to you guys. And once you guys have your note cards, you're going to go through them, pick a scenario that you guys like and feel comfortable acting out, and then I want you guys to act it out and then act out your response to it. And once you guys are ready, we're going to have each group come up here and act out their scenario and then act out their response to it. And so that we can see how we can combat discrimination in our daily lives if these scenarios ever happen to us, and just think of good ideas to stand against discrimination.